Growing up, I lived inside invisible cages. Not physical ones, but mental ones. They were built from assumptions I never questioned. And the strange part is, they didn't feel like cages at all. They felt like common sense, like reality, like the way life just is. Because everywhere I looked, those same ideas were being reinforced. Through advertising, through social media, through work culture, even through advice from people who genuinely cared about me. And for a long time, I didn't even realize I was living inside them. But once you start to see these patterns clearly, something shifts. You begin to recognize that what felt permanent was actually learned. And what was learned can be questioned. One of the first illusions I had to confront was the idea that money equals personal worth, that your value as a human being is tied to your income, your job title, your net worth. It turns life into a scoreboard, where you're constantly measuring yourself against some external number. And no matter how much you achieve, it never quite feels like enough. So a question started to surface. If I lost my income tomorrow, but kept my character, my relationships, and my skills, would I still believe I'm worthy? Another illusion runs just as deep. The belief that productivity equals value, that the more you do, the more you are. It sounds like discipline. It sounds like ambition. But over time, it becomes something else. Rest starts to feel like failure. Stillness feels uncomfortable. And life slowly turns into a performance instead of something you actually experience. So I had to ask myself, if I had an entire day where no one could judge me, what would I do with it? Not what looks productive, not what earns approval, but what actually feels real. Then there's appearance, the idea that how you look determines how lovable or respected you are, that your confidence should rise and fall based on mirrors or numbers or other people's attention. But when I really stepped back and thought about it, the people who mattered most in my life didn't love me because everything was perfect. They loved me through the imperfect parts, which made me question how much of that pressure was real and how much of it was learned. Another powerful illusion is the belief that external success leads to lasting happiness, that the next milestone, the promotion, the house, the number, will finally make you feel complete. But the goalpost keeps moving, and even when you reach something you thought would change everything, the feeling fades. So I had to ask, when was the last time I actually felt at peace? And what, if anything, had just changed externally? Because most of the time, the answer isn't what you expect. Then there's busyness, the belief that being constantly occupied means you're important, that a full schedule equals a meaningful life. But motion isn't the same as progress. And sometimes, constant movement is just a way to avoid asking deeper questions, like, what do I actually want? What matters? What would I remove if I gave myself permission to? Failure is another illusion that runs deep. We take a mistake, a rejection, a setback, and turn it into identity. I failed becomes I am a failure. But those are not the same thing. One is something you experienced. The other is something you decided to believe. And when you separate those two, something opens up. Because then you can ask, what did that moment actually teach me? And how did it shape me in a way that might not have happened otherwise? Then there's the weight of other people's opinions. The idea that what people think about you defines who you are. So you start editing yourself, adjusting your behavior, trying to stay within invisible lines you didn't even draw. But if you remove that pressure, even for a moment, what would you choose differently this week? What would change? Scarcity is another quiet illusion. The belief that there's never enough, not enough time, not enough money, not enough opportunity. So you hold tightly, you compete, you stay in a constant state of tension. But if you look closely, most people can point to moments where something showed up at the right time, where things worked out in ways they didn't plan, where just enough was actually enough. Then there's the idea that your personality is fixed. I'm just not that kind of person. But when you look at your life honestly, you've already changed in ways that once felt impossible, which means that belief isn't truth. It's just a snapshot, frozen in time. And finally, comparison. Measuring your life against someone else's progress, their results, their highlight reel. It feels like motivation, but more often, it disconnects you from your own path, because you're no longer measuring growth based on where you started. You're measuring it based on someone else's timeline, and that's a game you can't win. The truth is, these illusions don't disappear overnight. They dissolve slowly, through awareness, through catching them in real time, through noticing when they show up in your thoughts, and choosing, even in small ways, not to follow them automatically. So instead of trying to fix everything at once, you pick one, maybe two, the ones that feel most real right now, and you sit with the question behind them. You revisit it. You notice when the old belief shows up again. And little by little, something changes. Because underneath all of these illusions, there's a truth that doesn't move. Your worth was never something you had to earn. It was never tied to performance, or appearance, or approval. Those things are roles. They're temporary. They're things you move through, not things that define you. And when you stop treating them as your foundation, you gain something most people spend their entire lives chasing: the ability to live without constantly proving yourself, the ability to change without losing yourself, the ability to let go without feeling like you're losing everything. You gain freedom.